The rain hammered against the glass windows of Bellissimo Patisserie, one of Manhattan's most exclusive bakeries, where a single slice of cake cost more than most people spent on groceries in a week. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of vanilla bean and Belgian chocolate, where golden chandeliers cast warm light over displays of edible masterpieces. Marcus Chen, a tech billionaire worth over $3 billion, stood at the counter in his tailored Armani suit, barely glancing at the prices as he ordered a custom 5-tier cake for his daughter's Sweet 16. The baker nodded enthusiastically, already calculating the $15,000 commission. That's when the door chimed. A small figure entered, dripping wet, leaving puddles on the marble floor. The boy couldn't have been more than 9 years old, with shoes held together by duct tape and a jacket 2 sizes too small. His dark eyes were enormous in his thin face, and he clutched a crumpled dollar bill in his trembling hand. The security guard immediately moved forward, but something made Marcus raise his hand, stopping him. "Excuse me," the boy's voice was barely a whisper as he approached the counter, his eyes fixed on the display, cases filled with glittering cakes that looked like they belonged in a palace. "Do you have an expired cake for my birthday?" The question hung in the air like a prayer. The baker scoffed. "We don't sell expired goods, kid. This is a luxury establishment." "Now, please wait," Marcus heard himself say, surprised by his own voice. He turned to the boy, really seeing him for the first time. "It's your birthday today." The child nodded, clutching his dollar tighter. "Yes, sir. I'm 10 today. I saved this for 3 months." He held up the crumpled bill with such pride it made Marcus's chest tighten. "I know it's not enough for a real cake, but I thought maybe you throw away the old ones, the ones that are about to expire. I don't mind if it's not perfect." Marcus felt something crack inside his carefully constructed world. When was the last time he'd truly looked at someone, really seen them? "What's your name, son?" Marcus asked, kneeling down despite his expensive suit touching the wet floor. "Daniel, sir. I live at St. Catherine's Home for Children, 3 blocks from here." The boy's voice grew smaller. "We had cake once, 2 years ago, when someone donated money. It was the best thing I ever tasted. I've been dreaming about it ever since." Marcus glanced at the baker, who was looking uncomfortable, then back at Daniel. "Why are you here alone? Where are the people from the home?" "Sister Mary doesn't know I left," Daniel admitted, his eyes filling with tears. "She works so hard for all of us. There are 42 kids and not enough of anything. I didn't want to ask her for something impossible." He wiped his eyes quickly. "I just wanted one birthday to feel special, you know? To feel like I matter." Those last words pierced through every wall Marcus had built around his heart. He thought about his own daughter, who had thrown a tantrum last month because her birthday car was red instead of white. He thought about the 17 cakes he'd ordered over the years, half of which got thrown away uneaten. He thought about the boy standing before him, who believed that mattering meant having an expired cake. "Daniel," Marcus said softly, "what if I told you that you could have any cake in this store?" The boy's eyes widened. "Sir, I only have $1. What if I told you," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger, "that today we're going to do something different? Something that matters." Marcus stood up and turned to the baker. "Cancel my order. Actually, no, triple it. I want you to create something magnificent." He looked down at Daniel. "But first, you and I are going shopping." What happened next became the story that would trend worldwide within hours. Marcus took Daniel to the finest clothing store in Manhattan, where the boy stood in shock as tailors fitted him for a custom suit. "Every young man should feel like royalty on his birthday," Marcus said, watching Daniel's reflection in the mirror, seeing the boy stand taller with each passing moment. Then they returned to the bakery, but Marcus had made calls. When they arrived, the entire orphanage was there, all 42 children and Sister Mary, who stood with her hands over her mouth in disbelief. The bakery had been transformed. Balloons in gold and silver filled the space. A string quartet played in the corner. And there, in the center, was not one cake, but 43, each one a unique masterpiece. Each one with a child's name written in elegant frosting. Every child deserves to feel celebrated, Marcus announced to the room. Not just on their birthday, but every single day. Daniel stood frozen in his new suit, tears streaming down his face as he stared at the cake with his name, a 3-tiered chocolate creation decorated with stars and the words "You matter," Daniel written across it. But Marcus wasn't finished. "Sister Mary," he said, turning to the nun who had dedicated her life to these children, "I've purchased the building next to St. Catherine's. We're going to renovate it into a proper home, one with enough bedrooms, a real kitchen, a library, and a playground. I'm also setting up a trust fund that will ensure every child here gets a proper education, healthcare, and yes," he smiled at Daniel, "a birthday cake every single year." The room erupted in gasps and tears and laughter. Sister Mary approached Marcus with tears running down her weathered face. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why would you do this?" Marcus looked at Daniel, who was now surrounded by the other children, all of them marveling at their own cakes. "Because a 9-year-old boy taught me something I'd forgotten in my climb to success. He taught me that the smallest act of kindness, wanting to give himself a birthday cake, can illuminate the biggest blind spots in our hearts." He knelt beside Daniel again. "You asked if we had expired cake because you thought that's all you deserved. But Daniel, you're not expired. You're not secondhand. You're not less than. You are exactly what this world needs, someone who still believes in the magic of small joys. Someone who still dares to ask for what makes life sweet." Daniel threw his arms around Marcus, and in that hug, the billionaire felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. The party lasted hours. Each child got to blow out candles, make a wish, and take their cake home. Marcus's daughter, whom he'd called to join them, sat with the orphans and laughed harder than he'd heard her laugh in months. She whispered to him later, "Dad, I never knew how lucky we are. Can I come back next week and help?" As the evening wound down and the children headed back to the orphanage with their cakes carefully boxed, Daniel approached Marcus one more time. "Mr. Chen," he said, holding out his crumpled dollar bill, "I still want to pay for my cake." Marcus felt his eyes burn. He took the dollar, held it up to the light, and then did something unexpected. He pulled out his wallet and placed it alongside Daniel's dollar in a frame the baker had prepared. "This," Marcus said, "is the most valuable dollar I've ever received. It represents something money cucked by a pure heart that wanted to celebrate life even when life had given him so little to celebrate. I'm going to keep this in my office to remind me every single day what true wealth looks like." 3 months later, the new wing of St. Catherine's opened a beautiful facility with gardens, music rooms, and a state-of-the-art kitchen where the children learned to bake their own cakes. Marcus had become a regular visitor, often bringing his family to volunteer. Daniel flourished. With proper nutrition, education, and care, he revealed himself to be brilliant at mathematics and engineering. Marcus personally mentored him. Watching with pride as the boy began to dream bigger than expired cakes, he began to dream of stars. On the opening day of the new facility, Daniel gave a speech to the donors and press who had gathered. He was no longer the rain-soaked boy begging for scraps, but a confident young man standing tall. "People think the rich give to the poor," Daniel said, his voice clear and strong. "But that day at the bakery, I learned the truth. Sometimes the poor give the rich something even more valuable. We give you the chance to remember your own humanity. We give you the opportunity to be who you always hoped you'd be." The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Marcus watched from the side, his daughter holding his hand, and realized that Daniel was right. That rainy day, when a small boy asked for an expired cake, he hadn't been begging for charity. He'd been offering Marcus a gift. The gift of perspective. The gift of purpose. The gift of remembering that every life, no matter how small or overlooked, carries infinite worth. Years later, when journalists asked Marcus about his philanthropic transformation, he always told the same story. He spoke of the dollar bill still framed in his office, of the boy who taught a billionaire how to be rich in the ways that actually matter. "I built an empire," Marcus would say, "but Daniel built something greater. He built a bridge between two worlds that should never have been so far apart." He reminded me that we all deserve cake, celebration, and dignity. Not the expired leftovers of someone else's abundance, but the real thing. The very best we can offer each other. Daniel never forgot that birthday either. Even years later, after earning scholarships to the best schools, he would return to St. Catherine's every year on his birthday, not to receive a cake, but to ensure every child there got one too. Because he learned something that day that changed him forever. When someone sees your worth, when someone says you matter, when someone gives you cake instead of crumbs, it changes you. And then you spend the rest of your life making sure others feel that same transformation. One question, one rainy day, one expired cake that was never expired at all. It turned out to be the recipe for everything that matters.